Okay, this is a company I've talked about many moons ago. Onyx Gold. When they first spun out from High Gold, they they focused on some properties in the Yukon, but they also had some assets in Eastern Canada, in Ontario mainly. They drilled a few holes. They came in here. It was towards the late part of the season last year, and they tried to drill some holes very quickly at King Tut. They had some interesting results, but they weren't home runs. Okay, but then they went off and they drilled over in Ontario, and I love Ontario. I love Timmins, but I'm just not a big a fan as of those properties as I am of these rig type systems in the Yukon. But it was a delight to see Onyx announce today that they have acquired a pretty strategic, or a few days ago, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, a pretty strategic block of ground that is forms the core of one of their properties. So let's go to the next. It's this WEAS property. Okay. Now you can see the kind of reddish, dark reddish polygon that outlines their land holdings over Main Tut and Golden Mass. This is where they did most of their work last year. But this WEAS project, it's about 6 square kilometers, sits right in the middle. It's right over the intrusion, in fact, inside of the King Tut block. Okay. Well, turns out that belongs to Snowline. Okay. And the companies have clearly been talking for a while, and they reached agreement. And Snowline's going to take a big whack of shares. I think in total they get around 3 million shares. In exchange, our friends here at Onyx can option in on this thing, and they can get in and explore it. Okay. Now this consolidates the target. I think that's a good move. I don't necessarily like to see a company give up anything, but in this case, I think for both companies' benefits, given that Snowline will get the upside of having a big shareholding in Onyx, I think it's a good move. Okay, it's certainly a good move on Onyx part. Okay, you can see here a presentation of all of their data to date. They got rock samples, soil samples, and silt samples, and there are very profound gold anomalies associated with the reduced intrusions here at Golden Mass and this Main Tut area. And now they're consolidated. Again, now let's go to the next slide and look at an outcrop. Okay, this is a photograph from that block. Okay, and you can see the sheeted veins here. That is impressive. The WEAS block is actually a pretty high elevation block. Okay, so I know that there was a bit of head scratching about whether it's too steep to work or too elevated to work. I think it can be. I remember flying around here and looking at it. But the target is to die for. the sheeted veining in here looks pretty good, and it's not just here, but it goes over onto the adjoining ground as well. That's why the gold anomaly is where it is. Okay, now there was historic drilling here. This is going back, I think, to the 1990s. That hit a few tens of meters of 1 gram. But we also have a few surface samples. I think the highest grade surface sample is 20 gram per ton off of this material. Okay, so we know these sheeted veins are auriferous. This looks like a very, very well-defined target, a very easy to see target. I wouldn't be surprised if Onyx makes a discovery here this year. I certainly hope so. Okay, this would be delightful. Let's go to the next slide. Lion One announced some results this week from Morale. They have drifted over. Morale is a series of veins or lodes that are kind of west of that area that they've been developing so far. But they put a drive over a drift over into the Morale area, and they started, doing drilling, infill drilling mainly, to start to define these lodes better and in preparation for mining. And it turns out those Morale lodes are just absolutely dripping with gold. Very solid results here. You can see the headline there. It's 64.46 grams over 8.1 meter. But you also have, 4.8 meters, 30 grams. So basically 4.8 meters of an ounce, as well as 8 meters of 2 ounce. I mean, these are crazy numbers. And these are very much in line with numbers you'd see out of the Emperor mine, say back in the early days. Emperor is a nearby mine, very similar to Tuvatu. that produced 7 point something million, I think 7.6 million ounces of gold at this point. Okay, these are really good results. They now have access to these lodes, and these will become part of the mine plan. Very, very nice to see. Companies making good progress. I like to see this, but we do need to see the results and the expansion to that 500 ton per day goal that the company has. So let's go to the next slide. This is showing the sheeted lodes, and you can see some of the high grades they hit in some of these infill holes. The sheeted lodes mean they don't have to put in a lot of development. They can cross-cut this and then mine multiple stopes in a very small area. I think that's a big plus as well. Let's go to the next slide. Now, i-80 is kind of back in the saddle, I'm going to say. I did talk to Ewan, I think it was this week. I can't remember. Everything's a blur anymore. But I talked about to Ewan in particular about this Granite Creek zone. Granite Creek is one of several projects the company has. They have some of the highest quality gold assets in Nevada, in northern Nevada. Granite Creek happens to be part of the Getchell area, the Getchell Trend. And here you can see the plan view. Turquoise Ridge and Summer Camp, and then way up in the northeast corner there, Twin Creeks, are all part of Nevada Gold Mines operation there. They've got a big mine, underground and open pit there. So it's Newmont and Barrick in joint venture. Barrick's the operator and majority owner. Okay, but Ewan and his crew have this block of ground at Granite Creek towards the south end. And I think there's a lot of potential here. And I say that because I do know Barrick's drilling like mad, kind of right in the middle of that map there around the Summer Camp area. And they're finding ore like you wouldn't believe in the subsurface. It's mostly underground type material. But I think a lot of that carries down towards Granite Creek. Let's go to the next slide and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so this is a cross-sectional image. I don't know why it's so fuzzy. Don't know what happened there. Sorry. But you can see that there's a profile about 600 meters wide here where some of the drilling that's reached out and even been drilled from surface shows there's high-grade gold beds extending out well past the traditional mine area around the old what's it called? Marigold, or not Marigold, name fled in my head. The small mine that's up there in the north, in the upper left corner. There's a lot of blue sky there. Like in my view, with the drilling they're doing and seeing these big results, 28 grams over 16 meters, 31 over 22 meters, 37 over 7, you got 31 over 2 and 15 over 7. These are really stout results. As they do infill into that area, they are seeing something come together. And it looks a lot like what Barrick's seeing just a short ways to the north. I think this is part of that system, and I think this will end up being a multi-million ounce discovery. All right, let's go to the next slide. Nice to see him back to work. Okay, last on the dock. Red Pine. Okay, for the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've had to talk about the situation at Red Pine, and this morning they came out with further information about what's going on there. And it has a lot to do with assays that were reported over the past 10 years or so. So assays released between the years, I think 2014 and 2023, or up until recent times. Okay, you can see here a summary of their findings to date. Okay, the correct assay results were sent via email by ACK Labs to the company, addressed only to the former CEO. In other words, the chain of command, what that means is the chain of command here, ACK Labs they would assay the rock, and then they would send the results directly to the CEO. Is that typical of most junior mining companies? Actually, no. Most of the time, junior miners have people inside the company, whether it's the vice president of exploration or a database manager or somebody, take in that data. They then, look it over to make sure the QA/QC checks out, et cetera, and then they feed it up to the chain to the bosses, whether it's CEO or otherwise, to work with them to interpret it and then put out a news release. It is a little weird that just the CEO was getting the data here. You got to say that was a surprise. Okay. It also asserts that the drill core assay results from, the spring of 2015, there it is, to 2024, um, appeared to have been manipulated. It was manipulated drill core assay results. And this is where, it impacts things. It impacts their recent technical report. I think it came out last year. And some other works, obviously their news releases are impacted. But here's where my head explodes. Okay, the last bullet says 532 of approximately 98,000 drill core assay results in the overall database appear to have been manipulated. Okay, when they say manipulated, that's very, very clear. They interpret that the former CEO manipulated the data. Since Red Pine acquired the Wawa Gold Project in 2014, I think it was held by a private group before then. Do not forget, this is where I can't, it's incongruent, okay? Because you have a project that has a lot of historic drilling by many different parties. And quite frankly, it appears to be reputable. They're not arguing against historic drill results. But now, enter Red Pine, and we have this issue developed. And it's specific to 532 samples. Now, I would think if you're going to go out of your way to manipulate something, why would you only stick to 532? It doesn't make any sense. It's a little weird. Is it the highest grade samples? Well, I decided to do a little digging. Okay, so I went in. There's a little link there you can click on. Let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, this is where I don't understand the why somebody would do this. Okay, you can see two gray columns. Okay, we're just going to focus on those. Those are capped assays. On the first gray column, those are the ones that were reported over the past 10 years. Okay, they're reported in news releases in the database, that was put into the 4311, et cetera. Okay, over here, the second gray column is a corrected assay. In other words, the new management of Red Pine has gone back. They've looked at the assay spreadsheets, and they said, these are the numbers that should be there. Okay. Now, here's where I don't understand things. I mean, yes, okay, you can see the first hole there. What is it? 1526. Most of the numbers shift down, shift down, shift down, shift down, shift down on individual assays. Almost all of those shift down. Okay, but then go to hole 31. Those are the same numbers. So okay, why would you if you're going to manipulate something, why wouldn't you manipulate the whole shebang or something consistent? That doesn't make sense. So like the first and the second are exactly the same. Third one in hole 31, yeah, that's a drop. Fourth one is a drop. Fifth one is a drop. Okay, all right. But why wouldn't you change the whole thing? Like, what would be the thought process to change like one or two and not the whole shebang? If you're going to go to that trouble or be that shonky, it just seems a little weird. Go to the next slide. Okay, this is just another example. You can see, let's see, hole 45, 1645. Yeah, there's a big drop. You go from 44 down to 6. But then the next one is pegged at 80. Basically, I don't know why it says star. Maybe that was an over limit or something. Okay, but why wouldn't you change the whole shebang? Even down the row there, you've got some down in, what is it, 86, where you're just off by a few grams. Okay, like, I don't know. This seems very strange, guys. Okay, so back out of there, Nathaniel. I want to talk about this. Look, a lot of times when a company, and I don't have the data, I haven't looked at it, I don't know, but a lot of times when a company assays rock, and there's clearly a nugget effect in the sample, they will assay it multiple times, so you end up with duplicate assays. And just my hunch is this smells like somebody cherry picking. Like, let's say a rock was assayed 5 times, okay, and let's say it was like 0.3 gram and 1 gram and 3 gram and 28 gram. Well, it smells like somebody picking the 28 gram as the winner. That's just my gut. That's when I see this, it's so inconsistent how the data has been manipulated. But it seems to apply to, you know, so my hunch is, um, yeah, it's manipulated, whether it was, you know, in with the intent of defrauding. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. Other people will have to make that decision. But I'm just saying it's weird that somebody would just change, you know, 500 and whatever samples and not the whole shebang. You know, there's been other cases where, you know, a company, you know, or a person at a company changed all the data. Why wouldn't you do that? I don't know. It seems a little weird, guys. But that's about all I know for now. So